It's time for mailbag once again. Garrett Downing is out, but we have 3 with us here today. Me, Sarah, and Sarah's future baby. So we're here to answer all your questions, and we'll jump right into them. Luke Heffernan asked, do we look in the draft, free agency, or somewhere already on the roster for that starting inside linebacker spot next to CJ Mosley? Well, I'll say this to start. The Ravens never have any trouble finding a starting inside linebacker. So I think they could go in any of those 3 directions.
Way to narrow it down, Mink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll start on the roster because I think they have options already. Kamalei Correa, last year's second-round pick, I think he could step in there. They're already grooming him for inside linebacker. Patrick Owusu, another undrafted free agent just like Zachary Orr was. He stepped in for Orr in the last game of the season when Zach was injured. I think he could be another option. Converted safety, he can cover, he can tackle. The point being, I think CJ Mosley is the centerpiece, right? And they can find somebody, whether it's a late draft pick, a late free agent signing, or somebody already on the roster to kind of plug in next to him. Let's remember, Ray Lewis, right? Who did he have next to him for so many years? A lot of times it was undrafted guys. Jameel McClain, Albert McClellan, Brendan Iamadejo, a free agent signing, veteran free agent signing. A lot of times the Ravens kind of just plug somebody in there. That's not the marquee position. So I think they will find an answer there somewhere down the road, and it's not a high priority at this point.
The ideal is to repeat what they did last year, which is because inside linebacker was a huge question.
Yeah.
And then it was Zachary Orr, this unknown guy that was ready to fill in and do it. Hopefully, Kamalei Correa, since he's a second rounder, is that person to step in.
And I don't know that you're going to find somebody as good as Zachary Orr was. I mean, he was excellent in that position, but you can groom somebody to hopefully become that.
To play next to Mosley. The next question comes from Charles Michaels, and he asks, why did the Ravens let the top possession wide receivers in free agency go to other teams for cheap, affordable, and one-year deals? That's a big criteria. I don't think there were a lot of those that the Ravens let go. I mean, you look at Pierre Garçon, he got a 5-year deal. There were lots of, and even those that got one-year deals, they were pretty expensive. Alshon Jeffrey.
That's $9.5 million.
That's $9.5 million.
Terrell Pryor.
But I think the Ravens could have done that for $6 million.
Okay.
Okay. So, and I also think there were reports that the Ravens also wanted Brandon Marshall. I think he wanted to stay in New York. So at the end of the day, the Ravens, I think, had interest, but it didn't get done for whatever reason. It didn't work out. But I don't know that there were a ton of one-year cheap deals out there. So to me, what this means is this puts pressure on the Ravens to use the draft to find a good wide receiver, because behind Mike Wallace and Brashad Perriman, nobody else had more than 7 catches last year.
Right.
You need more than those 2 wide receivers.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to put pressure on, and I wouldn't rule out that still a veteran gets cut that could be a possession wide receiver that could still give a lot to this team in the last years of his career.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alshon Jeffrey, speaking to the 2 guys with one-year deals, Alshon Jeffrey was too expensive, $9.5 million, $6 million for Terrell Pryor. Sure, maybe that's manageable, but it's the same money the Ravens gave to Brandon Carr, and I would argue that cornerback was a bigger immediate need right now than wide receiver, where you have Brashad Perriman and Mike Wallace. I mean, yeah, not a lot behind them, but you have 2 guys who could be your starters.
The secondary's been the Achilles heel, so I will agree.
Exactly.
Yes.
Our next question comes from Yasha Yahoo 1, and they ask, any chance we draft an offensive lineman with our first pick? This is one I hadn't really thought a lot about. But Cam Robinson, I actually saw him. He's the Alabama tackle. Alabama, you know Ozzie likes his Alabama guys.
Ozzie likes that.
I saw him projected to the Ravens in one mock draft. Could they actually pick a lineman? And I would say it's not out of the question. Maybe. I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
But I think it's a possibility.
It's a possibility, but I say it's unlikely.
Yeah.
And I also think, again, because there's bigger needs, and the Ravens have a history of getting great offensive linemen in the middle round.
That's true. That's true. But they do want to beef up that offensive line. They're pretty clear about that. And Cam Robinson
I still say unlikely.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that does it for us today on Mailbag. Send in your questions via Facebook, Twitter. We'll make sure to get all of them. And Sarah, you'll be back next week, right? So
Sure.
Garrett's still out.
As long as the baby doesn't come.
So we'll talk to you next week.